I mean it when I say it. Now, I do know that you have got some quite hefty things on your agenda tonight. I'm sure there will be differing views, but I do pray that you will take the time to really listen to each other, to understand the different viewpoints, and to be able to accept whatever decisions are made. So, with that in mind, would you please bow your heads in prayer? Almighty God, from whom comes every good and perfect gift, grant to those who hold office and places of responsibility in this borough the spirit of justice and truth, of wisdom and clarity, that mindful of their responsibilities and of the needs of those they serve, they may promote the true welfare of all people and advance the common good. And we pray especially for your guidance, wisdom, and support during this meeting. Help all those here to engage in meaningful discussion. Enable them to listen and understand the differing viewpoints and to make decisions that are for the benefit of all. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much indeed, Fiona, and thank you for coming. Good luck at your next meeting. Well, members, I'd just like to update you, if I may, on some housekeeping arrangements before we start this evening's business. There are no scheduled tests, so in the event of a fire alarm, we will need to evacuate the building. The fire exits open automatically and they are clearly marked. Please leave through the nearest exit to your seat. The muster point is in the car park by the Bowls Club. The toilets are located through either set of double doors behind me. Then turn left, keep going until you reach the clearly signposted facilities. Please use the nearest doors if you need to access them during the meeting. There's one entrance and one exit for the duration of the meeting, but when the meeting ends, please use the doors nearest to you to leave. Lastly, when speaking, please ensure that you use your microphone. Right, so these proceedings will be webcast and recorded by the council, but will anyone else be recording or filming them? I just want to know so that people in the meeting will know. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Mackay, and I don't think there was anybody else, but thank you, Councillor Mackay. Item 2 is apologies for absence. I have received apologies for absence from Councillors Newton, Margaret Rose, de Wiggendon Shepherd and Chabinski. Are there any other apologies that we know of that I haven't read out? Okie doke, let's move on to item 3, applications for dispensations.
I have received none, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bolas, as our principal lawyer. Item 4, disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures of disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests by members? It doesn't look as if there are any. Are there any disclosures by officers? None? Lovely, thank you very much. Disclosures of lobbying, item 5. Are there any disclosures of lobbying for this evening? And it's going to be a quiet night tonight by the look of things. Goodness me, no hands going up. Okay, item 6. Is it agreed that the items on the agenda be taken in public as proposed? We don't have any yellow papers, do we? So are we agreed on that, members? Everything in public? Agreed, jolly good, thank you. Item 7, for petitions. We have no petitions this evening. Question and answer sessions from members of the public. We have no questions from members of the public. Hopefully there will be in the future, but certainly there aren't any this evening. Questions from council members. We don't have any from council members this evening. So that brings us straight on to item 10. I'm going to call upon Councillor Pearl to move the recommendation of the Democracy and General Purposes Committee relating to whole council elections, and you will see that recommendation on page 1. Councillor Pearl, over to you.
Madam Mayor, the motion on the audit paper that I am moving has been worded so as to comply with the pertinent legislation, but the practical question before the Council tonight is not about whether there are all-out elections in 2024. There will be, and there will be because the current boundary review means there has to be. So all these sort of apparent stresses of finding sufficient candidates is something we'll all have to face anyway, like all the normal councils in Kent. Nor, I should add, is tonight's vote really about what happens in terms of elections after 2024. If, as my arithmetic suggests, there is a majority in favour of this tonight, but not the two-thirds supermajority, the Council can be assured that we will persist with this matter until we get a resolution of it. What tonight's vote is about is what we tell the Local Government Boundary Commission when they do their review. If we tell them now that we're still not yet prepared to switch to a normal election cycle, we can expect the boundary review to proceed on the basis of defaulting to 3-member wards. That would mean sweeping away most of the existing single-member and 2-member wards, whatever the local identities that would then be trampled on. That would mean single-member wards like Barming and Thiessen and Borton-on-Chelsea and Downswood and Ottham and Langley and Leeds and Luce and others are likely to go, along with 2-member wards like Staplehurst or indeed Harwich and Lenham. So that is why I'm asking you to support this motion tonight, and on that basis and for those reasons, ma'am, I beg to move.
Thank you, Councillor Pearl. Is that motion seconded, please? Thank you, Councillor Burton. I'm assuming there will be some discussion. Will there be any discussion on this issue? I can't see a thing. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Harper. I can just about see you.
Is that live? Yeah. Before I start, I just better explain the tea towel for the Mayor's benefit. As she probably knows, I've just brought it along in case she felt like spilling coffee on anybody, because we were at a reception only a week ago where, I don't think it was on purpose, but it was to do with the museum, and she managed to throw coffee all over the director of the museum as she was explaining some of the exciting developments going ahead. So I did tell her I would bring a tea towel tonight, and it is here. So, that aside, Labour have obviously followed this debate over whole elections with interest. I think we were surprised by the standard of the public consultation and the way it was presented. To have the consultation phrased just in terms of money and savings, we believe was a very poor and crude way to do it. It was such a partisan approach as to render the results largely worthless, as it already led people to a conclusion. And also it cost the council up to £18,000 for the privilege of doing it, for the 3,000 responses you got. Democracy costs money. The cheapest way to administer Maidstone would be to dispense with councillors altogether. That would save at least £460,000 based on our budget book. However, we live in a democracy and there is a cost to democracy. One of the main roles of a councillor is to represent their constituents and ward and to keep in touch. How better to do this than the current system where in 3 or 4 years we have council elections? It makes sure that we are all involved in public life. It makes sure that all those involved in public life have their finger on the pulse. Yes, it might cost a few pence more than all-out elections, but it ensures that councils remain aligned with local feelings. Unlike most of you, I've worked as a councillor in authorities with both systems, and I can see the benefits of the current system. It definitely makes more work for political parties and independents, since we have to be persuading residents every year to be voting for us. But it does avoid the cliff edge you get with all our elections, when it's not unusual for over half a council not to reappear from one meeting to the other, and in some cases even more. People lose seats to parties, people stand down. And then you just have paralysis for a period of time whilst the new councils are being trained up, while any political group is re-establishing itself. Our current system keeps an element of continuity, and even this year, with a change of majority control, it's gone fairly smoothly, because we've only had a third of the council up for re-election. So finally, I'd just say, why do we want to mend something that is not broken? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. I next have Councillor Daniel Rose, who wishes to speak.
Hello, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to pick up on a few points the Councillor just made. Firstly, a few pennies more to do it every year. It is a little bit more than a few pennies. From what numbers I've seen, it's £80,000 a year per year that we have an election that could be saved if we move to this new system. Think about what everything that we could do with that money every year, and think about the households that are taxed to provide that election for us. He also spoke about paralysis that might come about because of this change in system. I would argue that we have far more paralysis under the current system than we would under the new system. Think about every lead up to an election where we have no committee meetings, where nothing is decided because we're all in purdah, or we can't make decisions because we're fighting elections in a month's time. I would say that we would not only save a hell of a lot more money, we would also get a lot more done because of only having to go through that paralysis once every 4 years rather than once every year. And thirdly, I think we have a case of voter burnout under the current system. Let's all think back to what our turnouts were in each of our elections where we were elected. Mine personally was 19%, which is really poor. And I would say one of the factors that goes into that is that people in my ward have to go to vote for someone almost every year. Now, we want elections, we need democracy, of course, but we also need to think about what will provide the best value for money, what will get us working as efficiently as possible, and what will provide the best turnout. And whatever happens here tonight, we have to make the decision that's not right for a political party, but is right for the people in Maidstone. And that needs to be a personal decision, and I'm very certain as to what my personal decision will be. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Next I have Councillor English.
I wasn't going to speak on this, but I think I just need to correct a fact that has been misstated. We did once receive legal advice from the head of legal services that a planning committee meeting should be cancelled because of purdah. That's true. But having consulted the relevant case law and the appeal court decision, we decided that that was not the appropriate course of action. To my personal knowledge, no committee meeting has ever been cancelled in Maidstone because of purdah. That's just factually incorrect. I'm not going to engage with the rest of the discussion, but I don't think that should be allowed to stand on the record.
Councillor Rose, did you want to come back?
Just quickly, how many committee meetings are there in April?
I'm not going to prolong this as ping-pong. Your statement was factually incorrect. We have had committee meetings in April. Sometimes they made very significant decisions. The relevant test is whether or not you are conducting your committee meetings to deal with normal business. And normal business can and legally does take place in local authorities up and down the country in the purdah period. including Maidstone.
Are there any other councillors that wish to speak? Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very quick. I think what I would like to remind councillors of the outcome of that consultation, in that 72%, bar a few tenths, told us very clearly as a council that they wanted elections every 4 years. This is not the first time the electorate have given us that view. And to be quite honest, it's about time we took responsibility from our residents and actually took the decision to abide by their wishes.
I'll take Councillor Burton next, and then I see Councillor Bryce, I believe. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what I want to do is match a fact that's being quoted with a reality. The fact is committee meetings might not be cancelled. The reality is the business within them is significantly curtailed. That's what actually happens. I'm saying that with first-hand experience, having over a good number of years chaired the SPI committee. And you see the whole process of local plan making go into slow motion as you approach Purdah, and the difficult decisions are avoided, and then we go through a process of ramping up at the end. So I reckon we effectively lose a quarter of the time that we could have to actually get on and serve the people of Maidstone. So there might be a fact, but there is a reality. But I'm not going to stand here as a Conservative and say, I think we should have 4 yearly elections. I'm standing here because, hand on heart, I have yet to find a resident that thinks what we do at the moment is good. I've yet to find that. They are confused. We thought you elected you last year. Oh no, it's not my turn this year, it's my colleague's turn or my opposition's turn. It doesn't make sense to them. They want a clean process. They want an election. They want to make a decision. They want to give a group of people a 4-year run at it, and then they're judge them at the end. And that's healthy democracy. But the confusion that we have at the moment on the doorstep, who I'm actually voting for this time? Well, we thought it was Maidstone last year. No, it's not county. It's us again. Oh, and it's the other. That's why I stand up and say, the people want this change. And frankly, the arrogance defies me. If the people say they want it, a majority in this meeting say they want it, it defies me the arrogance of a minority that hide behind the need for a supermajority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I have to say it's very refreshing to hear councillors mention our residents. I have Councillor Bryce next, and then I will be having Councillor Munford and Councillor Blackmore. But first of all, Councillor Bryce, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having worked in survey research for a number of years, I just wanted to note the very considerable response to the survey of 3,130, which is, I think, one of the most completed surveys that we've issued for many years. So to congratulate the team that elicited or got that response, and to note that, and maybe just identify why the survey got such a good response and gave us such a clear direction, because I know sometimes it's not always the case. So thank you for your work on this, and it's actually quite encouraging to see residents engaging on that scale.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Next we have Councillor Munford.
I heard someone say, if it's not broken, don't mend it. Tonight you will break it. You will break it for members like myself if you don't vote for this motion. I've been to both of my parish councils and discussed this subject, and they are adamant that they do not want three-member wards. And I'm speaking for the single-member wards. That's what you'll break. You'll break the flexibility that we will have when we get to the Boundary Commission to choose what wards we want, to choose, be able to have single-member wards. I represent a single-member ward. They want it. Tonight, if you're saying you're not going to break something, you will break them. You will make them part of a multi-member ward, a much larger area. That's what you'll break. I'm all for flexibility. If this goes through tonight, we can then go to the Boundary Commission and be as flexible as we wish. We can have three-member wards, two-member wards, one-member wards. I'm in for saving money for our residents. I hear the sum of 80,000. We're here to represent our residents. Our residents have said to us they would like full council election. It will affect me. I am telling you, as a single-member ward, it will affect them. They do not want multi-member wards. So, yeah, if it's not broken, don't mend it. But if it's going all right, please don't break it when you've got the opportunity not to.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford. I now have Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Councillor Mumford, you pinched some words off me, but if I may just add to what you've already said, I think single-member wards are actually truly special because many years ago, and I'm going back I think to about 2001, 2002 when we had the last all-out elections, I'm looking for someone in this room who might remember, probably Councillor English is one of the few, and maybe Councillors Daly and Councillor Robertson as well. Sorry, Councillor Mrs Robertson, I apologise. Single-member wards, there were far more in the borough. Marden and Yalding was separate. Now it's all one. And I think that will also happen with two-member wards. You know, we'll lose Staplehurst, we're going to lose Park Wood, we'll lose Headcorn, we'll lose Shepway South. They're all going to change. Where will the boundaries be? We don't know. But more importantly, I think for the 4 yearly elections, can you imagine if we had national government and we voted in thirds? How could you budget for the NHS? How could you budget for the police or the border force? I mean, it would be ridiculous. Can you imagine residents having to have all-out elections? That's what we have nationally. Everyone accepts it. Turnouts are better, 65, 70%. As Councillor Rose has alluded to, he secured his victory on a 19% turnout. 4 in 5 people didn't vote for him. Sorry, Councillor Rose, no offence, but it's true. You're very good, by the way, very good. So I think if we are to get away from voter fatigue, voter apathy, voter boredom, call it what you will, I do think 4 yearly elections would be preferable. We've asked residents twice, and twice they have told us they want 4 yearly elections. If we don't listen, where does the arrogance lie? I think it lies with all of us, with every single one of us who does not support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. I now call upon Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, a lot has been said, but I really want to emphasise what Councillor Mumford said and Councillor Blackmore as well. If you a single member, two-member wards are very, very important. They have a lot of historical significance. The residents want to keep them. They are absolutely vital. If we go down this, if we go down and retain the third elections by thirds, we will lose that because the Boundary Commission sets a very high bar, and I suspect it would be very difficult to persuade them. We must retain our single member and our two-member wards. I would also add that a four-yearly election brings much-needed stability. We need to be able to plan to introduce our policies, not change every year, which can happen. And if you look at, and as Councillor Blackmore quite rightly alluded to, on a national basis, we have 4 or 5 yearly elections. That is absolutely right. From a historical point of view, in the 19th century, the Chartist movement argued for annual elections, and it was roundly defeated. And I think having elections every third, what happens is people get maxed out, you get low voting. And I think this is absolutely essential that we go over to a 4-yearly election and protect our single member and our two-member wards, which are very, very, very important to us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Blackmore, are you all right, or is it you did a fail, you just spilled your coffee?
Yeah, I just opened the water and it's gone everywhere.
All right.
Sorry, it's okay.
Anybody got a tea towel?
I have. Councillor Munford, you'd like to come back on something?
Yeah, voter fatigue. My turnout has never been below 53%. We're all voted in every 4 years anyway. My turnout in the 3 times I've stood has never been below 53%.
Neither's mine come to that. Thank you, Councillor Munford, and I'm a single ward member. Now, are there any more councillors who wish... do please come back to us, Councillor Pearl.
Madam Mayor, pursuant to Rule 23(4), and so that the public can tell which members are ignoring them, might I ask for a recorded vote? I believe colleagues will support me.
If there are 5 members... Remain standing a moment, please. Okay. We've got enough people, but we need the names. You can sit down, thank you. Oh, and 2 Lib Dems. Okay, we'll move to the vote. Councillor Pearl, can I just ask you, would you like to sum up before we proceed to the named vote?
I've actually left my microphone on, I see. No, I believe the debate on both sides has been quite good, and I don't wish to offer any further comment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearl. I shall now hand over to our Chief Executive.
Good evening, members. If I might ask you just to indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining with respect to the motion before you. Starting with Councillor Blackmore.
For.
Councillor Bryce.
For.
Councillor Brindle.
For.
Councillor Bryant.
For.
Councillor Burton.
For.
Councillor Cannon.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Coates.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Cooper.
For.
Councillor Cox.
Against.
Councillor Cumming. Councillor Daly.
Against.
Councillor English.
Against.
Councillor Eaves.
For.
Councillor Fissenden. Against. Okay, look, you've lost your voice, so we can see against. Thank you. Councillor Forecast.
For.
Councillor Fort.
For.
Councillor Garton.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Gooch.
For.
Councillor Grigg.
Against.
Councillor Harper.
Against.
Councillor Harwood.
Against.
Councillor Hasty.
Against.
Councillor Hinder. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Joy. For. Thank you. We just confirm that your vote is against. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cadker.
Against.
Councillor Kimmins.
Against.
Councillor Mackay.
Definitely against.
Councillor Mortimer.
Definitely against.
Councillor Munford.
For.
Councillor Nagy.
Against.
Councillor Parfitt-Reed.
For.
Councillor Perry.
Definitely for.
Councillor Pearl.
I suppose I better vote for it.
Councillor Ring.
For.
Councillor Robertson.
Against.
Councillor Rose.
Proudly for.
Councillor Round.
For.
Councillor Russell.
For.
Councillor Janetta Sams.
Against.
Councillor Tom Sams.
Against.
Councillor Spooner.
For.
Councillor Springett.
For.
Councillor Webb. R. Webb.
Against.
Thank you. And Councillor Simon Webb.
For.
Councillor Wilby. Against. And Councillor Young.
For.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenna, for.
My apologies. Thank you. Okay, so we'll just add the numbers up and do the calculation with respect to 2/3. Thank you. So members, the votes cast in favour 29 and against 21. So the 2/3 majority is not met and therefore the motion falls.
Thank you for that outcome, Chief Exec. As the motion has not achieved the 2/3 majority, the report will be submitted to the Democracy and General Purposes Committee on further options, whatever they may be. I therefore declare this meeting closed. Thank you, members. We'll start the next meeting in about another minute when I've got myself organised. Thank you. Well, I think we're all present. I'd like to press on, actually. So, once again, these proceedings, welcome to this evening's council meeting, today the 29th of September 2021. The proceedings will be webcast and recorded by the council, but will anybody else be recording or filming them, just so that we know what's going on? Councillor Mackay, thank you very much. First of all, apologies for absence. We have received apologies for absence from Councillors Newton, Margaret Rose, DeWick and Dean Shepherd and Trabinski. Are there any other apologies, members? No? Oh, Councillor Bartlett is not here, so we'll record his absence. Item 2, applications for dispensations. Are there any applications for dispensations?
I've received none, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any disclosures of disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests by members? Not that I'm aware. Not that I'm aware. What about officers? Any disclosable interests?
Can I disclose, Madam Mayor, that I have an interest in item 18, the proposed appointment of myself as an interim monitoring officer, and I'll withdraw from the room whilst you take that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowles. Hopefully that's being noted in the minutes while we move on to item 4, any disclosures of lobbying. Do we have any disclosures of lobbying? Doesn't look like it. Oh, is there somebody there?
All matters of the local plan.
Oh, is that coming up tonight? That's not for this evening's meeting at this stage. Can I move on to item 5? Is it agreed that the items on the agenda be taken in public as proposed? We have no yellow papers. We're all agreed on that, aren't we, members? Jolly good, thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting of the Borough Council held on the 14th of July. Are you all agreed that they are a correct record? If so, I can sign them off. Jolly good, thank you very much. We now come to item 7, which are the Mayor's announcements. I have to say that I've certainly been in mischief recently as Maidstone's ambassador. I've been extolling the virtues of our magnificent borough with fellow mayors across the county and beyond, from Thurrock to Sandwich, from Dartford to New Romney. I've been everywhere. I've warmly shaken hands with the Mayor of Medway across our boundaries, where they meet on the River Medway at the Hawkwood Stone. I've discovered the wonders of Margate Caves, and I've remained sober at a tour of Westerham Brewery. Meeting mayors from other authorities, it's an interesting and useful way of sharing thoughts and challenges. And clearly, Maidstone does not have the monopoly of having wonderful volunteers. I had the privilege of attending the ministry licensing ceremonies for the new vicar at St Paul's Church, Boxley, and the new team vicar at Hollingbourne Church. Lovely chap. While I was at the annual Battle of Britain memorial service at Chart Sutton, a perfectly timed Spitfire flew past directly overhead against the clear blue sky. It was a very moving moment. Oh, that street festival in Maidstone Town Centre, wasn't it fantastic? The music, the colour, the giant elephant mannequin, Star Wars characters at the museum, street performers, the whole town just came alive. Just as the Mela in Moat Park, how many thousand people attended that? I read in the Kent Messenger. And other fantastic events that I've attended at the park. It has all promoted so much interest and positive attraction to our borough. Let's keep it going. I was impressed by the academic prowess and sound characters of the Maidstone Grammar School scholars at their recent prize-giving event. and the dedication and teamwork of the volunteers and professional staff at Citizens Advice Maidstone. What a wonderful service they provide for all sorts of people in all sorts of, shall we say, predicaments. I felt intense pride at the Queen's Gurkha Engineers Regimental Birthday event at Invicta Barracks, and great enthusiasm for a new Maidstone-based initiative called Worldly Wise. It's a network of professionals from all walks of life whose aim is to support our school students make decisions about their own future, and that it is possible to lead a successful life without going to university. I'd like to just thank our civic officers and the Mayor's PA, Julie Webb, for their unstinting support, and especially for their tolerance and ability to continue functioning while the decorators have been in at the town hall. Finally, I look forward to seeing all of you at my civic service on Friday the 5th of November at 11 a.m, and of course at Maidstone's Remembrance Sunday Parade and service on the 14th of November. Thank you, members. Now, there aren't any petitions this evening, so we move on to item 9, question and answer sessions from members of the public, and I've received notification that Mr. Stuart Jeffrey wishes to ask a question of the Chairman of the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee. Over to you, Mr. Jeffrey.
Thank you. Can the Chairman of the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee please outline what measures are being taken or have been considered to prevent idling by vehicles in this borough?
Sorry, Councillor Cooper, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Mr. Jeffreys, for your question. The Council already has in place an air quality management area, as well as an air quality action plan, which is titled the Low Emission Strategy. The process of reviewing these documents commences this autumn and will involve engagement from across the political spectrum within this Council. Whilst the current Air Quality Action Plan does not advocate the use of enforcement powers available to the Council, I'm aware that these powers have previously been considered, but at the time the judgment was that they would not be appropriate to utilise in terms of the likely quantum of penalty tickets issued and the allowable fines versus the cost of enforcement, coupled with the burden of evidence required. To this point, the Council has instead focused its efforts on education initiatives to encourage drivers not to idle rather than use enforcement. We will soon be relaunching the Clear Air for Schools programme, which has been very successful in delivering the message through school-funded assemblies and parent communications. Finally, our DEFRA-funded digital air quality resource for schools is progressing well, which also includes anti-idling messages. A pilot version will be trialled next month, and the finished product will begin to be rolled out across all the borough schools early in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Mr. Jeffrey, did you wish to ask a supplementary question? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Given that, as I cycled here this evening, I passed a series of buses on the high street with their engines idling, and your current low emissions strategy refers to buses idling as an area that would be tackled by the strategy and clearly has failed. And given that this, as you mentioned, the Council has yet to consider enforcing idling, which is illegal, and given that the schools are particularly suffering, when will this Council really take some material actions to prevent and to reduce the pollution and to save lives in this borough against what is globally the biggest preventable killer on the planet?
Do you want to answer that, Councillor Cooper?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. I'm not sure it did arise from my response, but nonetheless, I'm pretty confident that this Council is already taking these matters seriously, not as any particular action in itself, but as part of everything that this Council does. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper, thank you. and thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. I have no other questions from members of the public, but I do from council members, and I've received notification that Councillor Janetta Sams wishes to ask a question of the Chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 years ago, I asked the leader of the council, how he was going to engage with young people with regard to the burning issue of climate change. Most of the people in this hall will not be around when the real effect is being felt on each and every part of people's lives. How will this council engage now with young people as a matter of urgency to manage what is an increasing disaster? Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Forgive me, because I'm always going to sound repetitive on anything to do with climate change. Climate change isn't a separate agenda. It is at the core of every decision and every action that this council takes in every regard. And I welcome the observation that the effects of climate change will be felt by the youngest people. But actually it's beholden upon us now in decision-making capacity to have the greatest influence to mitigate that impact into the future of our children and their children. I think it's beholden upon all of us to actually understand the issues of young people and for us to actually actively represent them in every decision that's made at every committee, whether you're a sitting member or a visiting member. Be there and fight their case. A more direct answer to your question, a public consultation engagement campaign for the Biodiversity and Climate Change Action Plan is in development, with plans to start public engagement and awareness raising by November 2021, and environmental events beginning each month in January 2022. The campaign will be inclusive and ensure gender, youth, minority groups, persons with disability and multi-faith members are all equally and amply involved.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Sams, did you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for that answer, which may well answer my supplementary, but there may be some more. Here's the Youth for Climate Conference of youngsters all over the world is meeting now, as you probably know. They are addressing the main urgencies and priorities of climate action by working on 4 themes, one of which is climate conscious society. Part of this is public awareness and mobilisation, and I believe that the Council must do more on this. Greta Thunberg, you've probably heard, is using
question, Councillor Sams.
There will be, in a minute.
Hurry up.
Just get there, sorry. She's used the phrase blah, blah, blah a lot, and we must not be guilty of this. We need to see, youngsters need to see more dry documents and not blah, 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 and not dry documents. So I suppose my question was, how will you more proactively involve the public and make sure this borough climate change action plan is more than blah, blah, blah?
Councillor Burton, I'm rather inclined to think that you actually gave the answer in your original answer, but I leave it to your discretion if you wish to respond.
Consultation is important, but I think that's where the blah, blah, blah starts. Let us actually do what we can now, why we can, and that means rolling up our sleeves and spending the hours on everything and being seen to be doing so. I'm preaching to the converted, I'm sure. No blah, 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 let's just do.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I now understand that Councillor Tom Sams wishes to ask a chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee. Over to you, Councillor Sams.
Thank you. At a recent meeting, you responded to a question about the Climate Action Plan, in particular the need to revise the plan so that it meets the needs of the world around us. As COP26 starts in a few weeks, and as scientists consider this to be the last chance that we may have to avoid a cataclysmic climate change, can I ask what steps the Council has taken to revise the borough's Climate Action Plan since the last meeting, and what this revised plan will achieve in terms of reductions? Thank you.
Over to you again, Councillor Burton.
I told you I was going to be repetitive. You know, we can have as many plans and blah, blah, blah as we want. It's the do in every single thing that we as councillors work on and that we act on together. The decisions that we make, the funding decisions, the prioritisation. It's the do. Yes, in the background, we do have a climate change action plan. It's in delivery. It will be iterative. It will be constantly revised. And we're currently doing some calculations to demonstrate how that progress is being made. I hope we'll start to see something in November. But that's numbers. That's calculations. Let's just do.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Sands, did you want to ask a supplementary? Of course, it will need to be a question arising out of your original question.
I suppose my question is, and I was going to expand upon that, but I suppose the question is, how will we communicate what the council plans to engage with and talk to the community to provide actions we must all take to change our lives and what must be done as a matter of urgency? I suppose my question is, how are we going to get that message across when nothing you've said with respect, Councillor Burton, has given me any encouragement that we're actually doing anything? The do is engaging with young people, and nothing you've said really gives me any encouragement to say that we will engage with young people in particular. So can you please explain how we're going to engage particularly with young people?
Thank you, Councillor Sands. Councillor Burton again.
I think you referenced the young people, particularly refers to the previous question. What I would encourage you to do is come to some of the meetings, hear about the plans for tree planting, consider the policies that are actually being put in place to encourage solar panels, delivery of electric vehicle charging points. Come to some of the meetings, have some participation in the budget and help to prioritise the money for spend to save, power saving measures. That's the do. Come and join in.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. And in fact, you might just as well stay there, Councillor Burton, because the next agenda item is current issues, the report of the Leader of the Council, response of the group leaders and questions from council members. So, kick off, Councillor Burton. Rather, start.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's some 3 months since my last report to you. During that time, we've seen a significant return towards normality, although we continue to be vigilant of the risks of COVID to our health and our economy. It is our role to play a part in stimulating the recovery locally, and we have all been engaged in refining our plans and prioritising resources to give the greatest benefit and opportunity to all of our residents. But we should not be content to simply look for a return to a normality that was. We must look ahead. There are challenges that we have faced for many years. Some of those challenges require bold action. We're here to make a difference and to make changes. I cannot think of a challenge that is more important than our duty to ensure that there is access to good quality housing for local people. I am quite certain that all of us have residents that ask us for help when they have spent years on our housing list waiting patiently to get a home. Working families that have children sharing rooms, sons and daughters at ages when it is not right that they do so. As furlough finishes, there may be even new pressures with the moratorium ending on evictions. We are tasked by government to ensure that there is a plan to deliver new housing into the market. But so much of that housing is beyond the reach of local people. It is time to be bold and intervene. I am setting out an ambition for this council that goes beyond what we have contemplated in recent years. We need to acquire 1,000 houses to be set aside for local people at affordable rents. 1,000 houses must be seen as a starting point, with a commitment to go beyond if it is necessary. I am not talking about building an extra 1,000 houses, but that this council takes direct control of at least that number out of what is planned to be built. That these homes are set aside for local people and that they will actually be affordable. 1,000 homes spread across the borough to meet the needs of local people in the places that they are needed, rural areas as well as more central parts. This is a bold ambition, and what I'm asking you this evening is that you support me in instructing our officers to bring forward proposals for how we can achieve this. There are many ways in which it can be done, and maybe it will be a mixture of approaches. But I offer you this for the clarity of our aim: 1,000 affordable houses for local people. And I will add to that, and of course, every due regard to climate change and biodiversity behind the delivery and living in of those houses. We continue our quest to ensure that all corners of our borough are safe and welcoming. We've been working with the police, and I welcome the very significant extra contingent of officers that they have deployed recently. The massively heightened uniform presence in key areas has been noticeable and effective. Last time, I referred to the darkness that lurks in certain places. Just as it is important that we have strong policing, it is important that we are not deterred from shining our own light. Some of the recent concerts that we have put on at the bandstand in Brenchley Gardens are great examples of this. Let's make sure that we keep the positive energy and activity shining to keep the darkness out. The perils of speaking about parts which need to be improved is that we dwell upon the negative. You will remember the fantastic Saturday a few weeks back when we held the Fusion Festival, that the Mayor has referred to it. The full-size mechanical elephant being ridden down the Wig Street, the Mayor dancing alongside, the drums, the dancers and the musicians.
Your time's nearly up, Councillor Burton. In fact, it is up.
Nearly done. One of the organisers of the group that takes this festival from town to town said to me how noticeably busier and more vibrant Maidstone was compared to other places they had visited. That was the impartial observation of a visitor. So let's not look down, let's look up, speak positively and spread the word. Maidstone is the business capital of Kent and we're open for business.
Okay. I'll try not to count the minutes so accurately next time, Councillor Burton. However, the other group leaders now have the chance to respond. You should have 5 minutes, but I might actually make it a bit more, but don't let's go on all night. Over to you, Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is the first time that I've been able to be here due to COVID. Last time I wasn't able to be here present. It wasn't me that had COVID, it was my son that was keeping us all in barracks. Yes, Maidstone is the business capital of Kent. You're carrying on what's been happening in the last 2, 3, 4 years. I think it's brilliant that you're following that on. I think it's very good about what's been happening in Brenchley Gardens and all over the borough, where as people come out of COVID, they are being positive. People are starting new businesses. We've supported businesses during the COVID time that have carried on. They've started even in COVID and carried on. We can see that and we can hear it, as the leader has said. I think that we need to look at what you're doing with the police, because we don't fund them as a council. We can support and be positive. I think that is our best method. And to not demand things of them, although what you've been asking has been delivered. I would love to know for how long they're going to be able to continue to supply those officers, but very good to hear that. You then mentioned these 1,000 houses. I'm sure everybody in this building would applaud that. We certainly would support that. The mixed tenure of what's supplied, I think, is what we should look at, looking to the future. I think as families come from other areas to join families that live in Maidstone, they will get bigger. I think houses will need to be considered larger. Certainly in the street where I live, a family have just joined 2 houses together to make sure there is provision for their larger family and extended age in the family. So what you've mentioned there, I hope the other leaders will support as well, but I hope my own Liberal Democrat members will support that with me. You mentioned about the quality of life as we've moved out of COVID, and I think the support the borough has given to the many groups that we've seen evolve through COVID has been good. And as we've looked at how we're going to allocate the money from government to encourage that and to support the volunteers that have certainly come forward, again, we will support that wholly. You chose to focus on these 2 things. There has been much that's been happening within the borough, and I certainly think the Mayor has pointed that out. So she's certainly flying the flag while the councillors get on with the business. You've also mentioned earlier about the green efforts that we're making across the borough. And idling of vehicles is just one that you've spoken about, we've heard about here. It is time to do something about that. And the involvement of youth with our plans for the future. Both of the Councillor Sams are spot on. They can see where we have to engage. I think we have the ability to do that through the further education that is in the town, because we're supporting them with things, and I'm sure they will enable us to engage with the youth from the borough. Thank you very much for your words. I think they're positive, and I can see that we're heading in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox, on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. I will now call upon Councillor Munford, the leader of the Independent group. Councillor Munford.
Leader of the Independent group, which goes every which way, and I will never, ever stand up here and pedal my own bike. I will speak for my group. And so often I won't say anything because we don't often agree. But I don't think that anyone can disagree that the bold challenge put before us tonight of acquiring 1,000 homes, I don't think even the Independent group could disagree over that. And you have my support, and I believe my group's. We need to remember where we have failed in the past. These houses that we get, however we get them, or these homes, we must make sure that we protect them for Maidstone residents and not other authorities. Also, and it may differ from something you said, I'd like to see that we focus on sustainable location, truly sustainable location for this type of housing, and not resort to what the local plan does, which the least sustainable locations receive the biggest quota of housing. So I would like to see you protect, or we protect them for Maidstone residents, and in sustainable locations. You also spoke about safety. I can report back to you that the ward clusters is working very, very well, and now that we are inviting parish representatives along that, I believe it will get better. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Munford. I now call upon Councillor Harper, Leader of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think one of the things we would welcome is the continuity in terms of taking forward, as the leader mentioned, the economic development strategy, which was approved a couple of weeks ago, which I think everybody here has supported the ethos of that for the last couple of years while it's been worked out. So it's good to see continuity there. And again, you referred to events like the Mellor, multiculturalism and arts, and again, we've got an arts and cultural strategy which was approved a couple of years ago. So again, the continuity of keeping these things which are pointing us in the right direction, which we all worked on in the past, I'm pleased to see that we're not reinventing everything, that we're keeping things going forward. You mentioned climate change, definitely do. It is a number one priority. I think we've had questions tonight and you've answered. Everything we do has to address that, the housing especially. So coming on to your ambitious target, I think definitely 1,000 is the starting point. We know that we'll be providing, 20,000 houses over the next 20 years, of which between 20 to 30%, depending where they are, should be affordable. Hopefully we will be able to deliver over the longer period a number of those, but not necessarily, not just at affordable rents, but at socially affordable rents, at social rents, because the critical thing for a lot of families is, as you say, affordability, but the sort of 80% affordability figure is still beyond a lot of these people. We need to see what we can do to get prices down to match what people locally can afford. But if we can start off with 1,000 houses and build from that, you'll have the support of the Labour Group in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harper. Where am I up to now? Oh yes, I'm going to open this item up to questions from council members for 15 minutes. I first have Councillor English and then I have Councillor Mackay. So Councillor English, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. This is a double question to you. First of all, may I welcome your announcement. I think it's the big weakness of all government's policies over the last years has been trying to deal with a housing crisis by just building houses of a general nature and not looking at affordability. Two questions. Would you accept that if the council itself is the developer, whether it's acquiring properties or building them, that it has a responsibility to develop projects that are good quality in terms of the amenity of the residents that are going to live in those properties? Second related question, would you recognise that given that one of the problems with councils being involved in housing directly is retaining the stock, that we should be looking at working with real affordable housing providers such as co-ops, almshouse charities and other providers as opposed to bog standard registered providers?
Thank you, Councillor English. Councillor Mackay. Oh, actually, did you want to respond to that? I beg your pardon, Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that was a 3 for the price of 1 you're going for there, Councillor English. So, quality. I would like to keep this simple. Every house that is built in Maidstone should be of a quality, whether it's private, social, doesn't matter. And if the council is looking to hold some of that stock, it should be of the same quality of everything else, nothing less. Retaining the stock. This is the beginning of a process where we need to all discuss the detail. Personally, I'm not precious about that. the key is if you sell one, buy another one. Maintain the pot. You know, so I think we're saying the same thing, retain the stock, but let's not put any limits on that. I think I said there's going to be lots of ways we can do this, and maybe the way we do it is blended. From what I've learned thus far about co-ops, what a tremendous model. But what I'm saying is let's join together in asking officers to bring as many proposals as possible to the table, and collectively we distill the way forwards. And the thing is, let's get on and do it. Let's not dally.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No one would disagree with your ambition. Sometimes, though, the devil is in the detail. So, a couple of questions. 1,000 houses over what time period? And could you be more precise about how affordable is affordable? The government's definition is 80% of market rate. That is not affordable for the majority of those on the housing waiting list. A more appropriate level might be the local housing allowance. So, supportive, but just a couple of details. The other, I personally, and I think a lot of people here probably now regret that Maidstone Borough Council is not in control of its housing stock, social housing stock. If there was a way to regain control of that, would you be supportive of that?
Councillor Burton.
I think that's 4 for the price of one, that is. I'll just start with the last thing first. Look, our decision to let our housing stock go was before my time. It's always seemed like a strange decision to me. I won't profess to understand the intricacies of running a rent account. You know, there was all sorts of restrictions at the time, but things have changed even since then. It may be a more viable option now. I had a meeting with a certain housing provider very recently, and I flippantly said to them, we could buy you out. That's saying get the housing stock back. It is flippant, but if it was possible, I'd mean it. What is affordable rent? Well, I think you've already jumped to where I was. The local housing allowance, you know, if that's what people can get by way of a safety net, that surely is the definition. For proper houses in Maidstone, that's £975 a month. We probably look at a private market sector of 1,350. That's where we've got to make a difference. Crude calculations on the, I was going to say on the back of a fag packet, on a quick spreadsheet, suggests that, you know, debt service costs and the borrowing needed to achieve this could function within the local housing allowance, but these are my early thoughts, and we need to rely upon the expertise of our officers to actually guide us through some of the vagaries of the things like having a rent account again, the more creative options of the cooperatives. I don't know all the answers. I've got some pretty good ideas, but the business experience in me says, do you know what? We can do this. We can do this.
Excuse me, I did ask time period.
Sorry. The perils of not reading your own writing. If I had a magic wand yesterday, I don't know the answer. You know, if we want 1,000 chimney pots, there aren't 1,000 chimney pots out there at the moment, so there's going to be some factor of build time. So can we agree that it is as soon as possible? But if it could be done yesterday, tomorrow, I'm there. The earliest that we can actually make it. That you might think I'm dodging the question. I'm not, because we don't know what the answer could be yet. But once we know what the answer can be, we'll take the earliest version of that as the answer.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I see Councillor Kimments there. Councillor Kimments, over to you.
You will excuse me if I don't stand up because my knee's playing up. If I was to say to you, Councillor Burton, that truly affordable cooperative housing runs at between £550 and £600 a month, not the figure that you come up with of £900, because a majority of the people that live in co-op housing are of working age, so they've got young families, and that is the true essence of co-op housing, is that you live in a house that is habitable, that's looked after, and is affordable. Most of the new builds are not affordable. This affordable housing under that tent or roof or whatever you want to call it is not affordable. The only true affordable housing is cooperative housing, because it doesn't have people at the top to pay wages to, because it's run by the residents for the residents. It empowers the residents to take control of their own futures.
Thank you, Councillor Kimments. I'm not convinced that requires an answer, Councillor Burton. It's a statement,
can I just say that we're on the same page here?
Sorry, it was a question. I did actually say, would you be surprised if I told you? And it just requires a yes or no answer.
Well, let me answer that and say I wouldn't be surprised, because your numbers tie in with some of my very simple calculation of debt service cost. So no, I'm not surprised. But I think the point that you actually really bring out is that because of the nature of that arrangement, the people that occupy the housing take ownership for themselves, and that, I think, is a key ingredient.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. If there are no more questions, I would like to, David Nagy. Councillor Nagy, and was there somebody else? Oh, I beg your pardon, Marion. I'll take Councillor Nagy and then I'll take Councillor Ring. I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to confirm a couple of things. The 1,000 houses will be houses maybe with a garden and not units or dwellings that go up about 20 floors, because that's not quality. I just want an idea, or we confirm that we'd be looking to build proper houses with probably a bit more garden than the washing line to go up, because that often we don't see in planning these days. And the other thing is there any way of looking into, we limited what other councils can conjure, how many councils can come into Maidstone and take over stuff? Is there sort of any way of limiting that with other boroughs that just come in? Are we even notified they're doing it, or is it just we've got no control over that at the moment? Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
With respect, I think you're almost missing the point. What we are actually setting out is the principle. We've already discussed the issue of quality. They want to be decent houses, like any other house built in the borough ought to be. Sometimes people want a flat. Maybe families sometimes actually want something different. There's no closed doors on this, but let's get on and do it. And your second question was? The words I was using is that, Maidstone Council takes control of 1,000 houses, or whatever the number is, greater maybe, for local Maidstone people. That's the aim.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Marion Ring. At last.
Oh, sorry. You don't mind if I don't stand up? Thank you. I just want to say that everybody's had a little bit to say, but it's took David to come along with this vision. Now, I'm going to sit here and say my question is, it's not a question, it's a thank you. 20 years I've been a councillor, and I've tried really, really hard to find people homes. I've had 3 cases in the last 2 weeks. And to be able to go to them and say, we're looking at a future where local residents can stay in Maidstone, the borough, and live. And David is right. Some people do want flats. Some people want maisonettes. We are really lacking in older people's homes who would like to be comfortable and happy. So my only bit is, I'm going to say thank you, David. Thank you for having a vision that I've wanted to hear in 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll just leave that statement as it stands, and I will move on to, unless there are any more questions, I'm going to move on to the next item, which is the report of the Democracy and General Purposes Committee meeting on the 27th of July. You'll find it on page 9, where we will consider the principle only. I call upon Councillor Pearl. Over to you, Councillor Pearl.
Madam Mayor, I hope this will be one of the easier items tonight. Wendy Hinder was a friend to most people in this chamber, cross-party, and had been due to have her time as Mayor. Her premature passing obviously cheated us of this. The protocol on awarding honorary alderman status as it stands doesn't quite cover Wendy's long service, nor indeed provide for posthumous awards. So the motion on the papers that I wish to move is for this council to agree to make an exception in her particular case, and I so move.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Oh, I see Councillor Annabel Blackmore is seconding. Thank you very much. Did you wish to speak at all? Or lovely. Thank you. Members, let's see a vote on this one, please. We are looking whether you are in favour to make an exception to the rule. Let's see all those green cards. Come along. Good. Isn't that good to see? A sea of green cards. Thank you very much indeed, members. That motion is carried, and rightly so. Now that we have the exception, of course, then the next step can go ahead, which is good news. Thank you very much, members. The next report from the Democracy and General Purposes Committee in September, it's Councillor Pearl again, about an additional outside body.
Madam Mayor, this should be fairly uncontroversial, I hope. So I'd like to move, and I quote, that the Kent Downs Line Partnership be added as an additional outside body within the remit of the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee.
And Councillor Pearl, do you have a seconder? Oh, it was Annabel Blackmore again. I just missed you, actually, Patrick. I'm sorry, but it was definitely Annabel. Members, I want to see this for the vote. Come on, are we going to have a sea of green? And bear in mind that if we have an outside body, we do need members to actually sit on them. Lovely, that one's carried. Thank you very much, members. We move on to item 14. Are you all right there, Councillor English? You're talking to yourself.
I was just mentioning to Councillor Nagy that there are already members of this council sitting on said outside body in their own right, so it'd be nice to be official.
Absolutely. Yep, well said. I'm just thinking of the outside bodies where nobody flipping turns up. Anyway, item 14, it's Councillor Pearl again. Democracy and General Purposes Committee relating to a new executive model. Now you'll need to turn to the recommendation on page 13, Councillor Pearl.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'm sort of on a roll. Hopefully this will be as uncontroversial as the preceding two motions. If I may, I should move the recommendation on the order paper and recommendations, plural, sorry, and in moving these, I'd like to make 3 points, if I may. The first is that I know there is still a large minority in this chamber who prefer to keep the old committee system rather than adopt any executive model. To borrow an old sort of Jim Callaghan phrase, I tell you in all candour that option no longer exists. This council has already resolved the principle of moving to executive arrangements, and the challenge that we have tonight is to agree the best model, or, depending on your view, the least worst model, in order to move this forward. My second point is that exactly as we promised at the council's annual meeting, we have had a cross-party working group working on this, in which I think I can safely say all concerned did their level best to be constructive and thrash out a sort of form of hybrid sort of executive come committee model, and that is what we have in front of us tonight. My third point concerns the rights and role of individual members. I'm sure many of you remember that in the past 3 years I've personally raised multiple member agenda item requests in committees. I issued councillor calls for action on crime and disorder, moved motions on notice, put down written questions, with my residents rustled up a massive petition on the Broadway, requisitioned an extraordinary council meeting, led the only successful call-in of a defective decision, thank you, and indeed caused the occasional bout of procedural mayhem at these august gatherings. As a member who's made good use of all of these mechanisms, I can tell you that if the model in front of us did not preserve and enhance the rights and routes open to individual members, I certainly would not be proposing it. Madam Mayor, unlike the extremes of the outgoing model or the old pure executive arrangements we had for 2015, this model shifts power in this council back to elected members. It preserves the valuable and functional aspects of committee work, and it preserves and enhances the rights of individual members, and I beg to move.
Thank you, Councillor Pearl. You're almost putting me off there for a minute. Have you got it seconded? I think that was Councillor Burton, actually. Thank you, Councillor Burton. I have Councillor English who wishes to speak. Does anybody else wish to speak before I invite? Oh, yes. Councillor Harper, thank you. And Councillor Hasty. Hold on, let me write your name down. Thank you very much. Councillor English, do please continue.
Along with Councillors Daly and Mrs Robertson and my ward colleague Councillor Denise Joy, I'm probably one of the people who've been around this council longest, so I've seen various models. I can say there's no such thing as a perfect system. Having said that, I wouldn't necessarily have started from here, but at the annual meeting it was quite clear that there was a majority in favour of an executive and scrutiny, don't forget that part, system. Given those parameters, I have tried to be constructive as I try in most circumstances. And I honestly do believe that the working party has come at this with very few preconceptions and very little intention of staying in trenches. At the annual meeting, I asked people to get out of the trenches. Well, I have, and I think some other people have. Now, there's still going to be, in principle, opposition to this in some parts of the council. But we are where we are, and there's no point pretending we're not. This system does have advantages over the current system, actually, in terms of members' access to what they can do. In terms of putting things on agendas, it's much clearer that the councillor's role cannot be blocked by in the sort of difficulties we've had, actually, in the past, if we're frank. It does have good merits. It's not where I would have gone to if I'd had a free choice of what to have done. I would have tried to change the existing committee system and improve it, because I don't think it's what I expected the committee system to be in some ways. Having said that, it's a lot better than the old cabinet system, and we are not going back to the old cabinet system. There's no desire for that in any place of the council, I think. So we are where we are, and I would hope that members would try and have enough vision to realise that the system can work and it does allow opportunities for both members from in the whatever the majority group is and in the opposition. Having said that, no system is any better than the people who try to operate it, and this is unfinished business. There are issues around the council and in the constitution that still need to be addressed. I am totally unhappy with some arrangements around transparency and members' access to information and meetings. I believe that the Democracy and General Purposes Committee's work is unfinished. This is a stage in the process, and we need to do a lot more to enhance members' role, whether it's in a cabinet system or of this type, which is essentially hybrid in nature, in a committee system or whatever governance we have 10 years from now. I don't want to be standing up and saying, oh, I can't get my items on the agenda, I can't get a report, and I as a member can't get decisions made on my behalf. We've had that under all systems in the past, and I'm not content to leave it like that. So I'm saying this is a start, but there's a lot more work to do, and I will be voting for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor English. I have Councillor Harper, and then I have Councillor Hasty. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd just like to thank Councillor Pearl for his commitment he made earlier about maintaining member access to information and ability to put motions on the agenda. I think everybody here who's been on the council for more than the last 6 months knows I also take full use of the ability of a council to make sure that we do debate issues on Maidstone. However, having said that, I'd also like to thank the Democracy Committee for trying to present a workable model. I think the model we have before us tonight is the best of a bad option. Tonight we have a simple choice to essentially maintain a working, inclusive system where everybody's voice is of equal value, or go to what ultimately could easily evolve into an autocratic, exclusive cabinet system. Making the best of a bad system is going to be a costly mistake for the people of Maidstone. The committee system has worked well over the last 7 years, and for generations before that, before cabinets were ever thought of in local government. As a previous committee chair for 3 years, I chaired the Earl Committee and its predecessor and worked tirelessly to build consensus around all decisions the committee had to make and to ensure that all 4 groups on the committee had an input into the decisions we made. I know that other committee chairs present tonight also have done that. However, in future, all the decisions will be made by the leader and the cabinet. Whilst there may be some element of pre-decision making involvement, it will be down to the leader and the cabinet to decide whether to take on board any of those inputs. Let's keep the committee system. It is open, transparent, inclusive and democratic.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. I now have Councillor Hasty, and then I'll have Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Hasty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You have to apologise for my nerves, I do get a bit wobbly. I was also on the Democracy Committee where we discussed this, and I didn't vote for it at that time because I think there are still lots of elements that need to be ironed out to make sure that the cabinet system or your new executive model, however you want to word it, is transparent. You know, nothing gets hidden on yellow papers, and I'm aware that has been discussed and it's something that's going to be looked into. I still believe it's undemocratic. I don't think that lesser groups are going to get the say in representing their ward members as it's claiming that it's going to do. And for that reason, I won't be voting for it, and I would like to see more work done on it rather than just put it through now because it's the best option that's been dropped on the table first. I think there's much more work to make sure that it is a good document that works for everybody, works for all of the councillors across the borough, regardless of what party they're aligned to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hastie. I have Councillor Blackmore next and then Councillor Cook. Councillor Blackmore.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. This is quite interesting because I feel as if we've got a sort of angel versus the devil. I feel as if Councillor Harper is saying that the committee system is the angel and the system which Councillor Pearl has proposed and the Democracy Committee have put forward is the devil. And actually, that's just not true. Having operated under the previous cabinet system, for 6 years I was actually a scrutiny chairman, and one thing I did try to do was to ensure that everybody had their own voice and opportunity to contribute. And I know there are members here who were on my scrutiny committees at the time, and I would defy them to say that was not true. Okay, you had your opportunity. I think it is fair to say that what we have in front of us is not the finished product. And I think anyone who has read the papers can see that there are aspects of it which are solid. But there are one or two bits that certainly need tweaking. But that's the same with everything. You know, local plan making is an iterative process. I believe this document is similar. It's not finished, it's work in progress. So I think if we take it in that spirit, and all of us are prepared to take it in that spirit, not just one or two, but everyone does, then I do think we can make a good fist of this, I really do. It has huge potential. So for that reason, Madam Chairman, that's one of the reasons that I supported it at the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a member of the Democracy and General Purposes Committee, I've looked at the proposal that we have before us this evening, and I'm grateful for the intervention of Councillor English. I absolutely agree with a lot of what he said on this issue. I have expressed my own reservations about certain aspects of the proposals in terms of the detail. But I like Councillor Blackmore, prefer to view this as a work in progress. And what we start with is not necessarily what we will end with. And certainly I will be working with the colleagues on this committee to effect the changes that we need to make it even better. But to make it, have that opportunity to make it better, we've got to make a start. And I do believe that an executive model provides greater efficiency and capacity for this council to take us in the right direction as a borough. So, notwithstanding those reservations that I have, I will be voting in favour of this motion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this item before we go to the vote? I beg your pardon, Councillor Burton, did you want to reserve your right to speak, or...?
My right is reserved. Would you like me to speak now, or...?
Think so, yes. Do please go ahead. I can't see any other people wishing to speak.
Really simply to say, I've worked in both systems. I think actually what it comes down to is having a majority in either system. That's actually where the control is, and we have a tendency to blame the system on not being part of the majority sometimes. But you know, we are committed to being as an inclusive council as possible, with all members participating. I think this system gives us an advisory committee structure that truly allows that, and I commend the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Now, members, I'd like to put this to the vote now, so please have your cards ready. All those in favour, please show. Keep them up as Ryan is counting. Okay, are we ready for the against? All those against, please show. I only had 2 votes then. Are there any abstentions, members? If so, please show. It's 33 in favour and 16 against. That motion is carried. Thank you, members. I think it's Councillor Cooper's turn now. We're looking to the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee, 21st of September, relating to the adoption of the Autumn Neighbourhood Plan. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, there are currently 6 made neighbourhood plans in Maidstone Borough, as I listed at our last full council meeting. The neighbourhood plan that is presented at full council tonight is for Autumn Parish, which, if made by the council, will bring the total in the borough to 7. For context, the number of neighbourhood plans in Maidstone Borough is fairly high compared to most other local authorities. Further neighbourhood plans are also in the early stages of production. Therefore, I move that Council makes this neighbourhood plan for Autumn Parish this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Is that seconded at all? Oh, I think I saw Councillor Cooper first. Oh, I'm sorry. You're Councillor Cooper, I'm Councillor Gooch, and that is Councillor Cook. I beg your pardon. Did anybody wish to speak on this matter, or can we go straight to the vote? Oh, Councillor Cook, you'd like to say something. Go ahead, please.
Just briefly, Madam Chairman, I just think in the absence, if I may, of Councillor Gordon-Newton this evening, as something of a local member for Autumn, I'm very aware of the work and the commitment that a relatively small parish has put into turning out what is a truly good document, and I wanted to publicly pay tribute to those efforts and thank the Council and the work of the SPI Committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well said, Councillor Cooper, very well said. Now, members, come on, let's see who's in favour of it. Oh, have I done it again? Are you still Councillor Cook? You haven't changed. In that case, you may have to swap seats, actually. There's only... members, let's go to the vote on this, please. Can we? Let's see a sea of green. Come on. Excellent. I think that's carried. Yeah, I'm going to be brave and say it's carried. Excellent. And congratulations to Autumn Council. Let's move to Councillor Perry. Now, Councillor Perry, I do know your name. It's forever etched in my memory. Oral report of the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee, 28th of September. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, the report describes the work and activities of the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee for the municipal year 2020-21, and these are highlighted. The work's highlighted on page 4 of the report. There is a small typo on there. You'll see it should be 2021, January 21 and not January 20, but apart from that, Maidstone Borough Council has a very good record in ensuring its finances are sound and are prepared in line with published accounting standards, and I believe there's nothing to indicate that this will still not be the case. However, I must report that the committee has had to defer approving the Council's statement of accounts for the year 2021, as there's been a delay in the production of the external auditor's report. We understand this is due to pressure of work, and it's not surprising given the exceptional circumstances of the past 18 months. I gather that many councils are similarly affected. In my personal view, this could be seen as a backhanded compliment, actually, as they have probably had to prioritise in order to cover more urgent investigations, and I think we're probably at least we're at the bottom of the list, I think. So I think that is probably good news. I should just like to thank all the officers involved in this work and my colleagues on the committee. And in addition, I'd like to thank my two previous chairmen of this committee, former councillors Harvey and McLaughlin, who I know did a lot of work as well. So I'd just like to move that, subject to this the correction of the minor typographical error on page 4, which is page 135 of the agenda, the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee annual report for 2020-21, which I can't, excuse me, my glasses are steaming up. It demonstrates how the committee discharges duties during 2021 be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Do we have a seconder? Oh, I saw Councillor Cox. Thank you, Councillor Cox. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Cox? No? Anybody else wishes to speak? No? Can we go straight to the recommendation? Come on, members, let's see a sea of green here. Thank you very much. Indeed, that recommendation is passed. Got a problem, Councillor? English, you're right. Oh dear. Okay, let's move on to, notice of motion, item 17. Houses of multiple occupancy, and members, you will have had a briefing note sent round on this item, but I call upon Councillor Harper to move to his motion about HMOs in Fant Ward. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to move a slight amendment to the recommendation as put on the paperwork. I've had discussions with colleagues in Bridgewald, and we would like to change it so that on the motion, rather than saying in the area defined in Fant, that be replaced by the ME16 8 postcode, in recognition of this issue being a wider issue just than that in Fant, but obviously in moving it and presenting it initially, it was from the Fant Council, so we wish to have that added into the motion. Now, most people here will probably know what a house of multiple occupancy is. It's clearly been defined for us, and I would ask everybody to support this motion. I'm sure a lot of you do not necessarily know the Fant area that well, so just to help you understand the type of areas we're talking about, just give you a brief indication. So Fant consists of the area of Maidstone west of the Medway, so stretching from Loch Meadow all the way down to the borders of Barming and every part of Maidstone between Tunbridge Road and the river. And the inner part of Fant is a heavily built up area with virtually no off-street car parking, dominated by densely built up terraced housing, but with strong local communities within the area. However, over the last decade, the area has witnessed massive overdevelopment, subdivision of small houses into flats, and more recently, the proliferation of multiple occupancy HMOs, which is effectively the new term for bedsits. Since 2010, when permitted development rights were approved for any house, we have up to 6 beds. There has been a democratic void in the monitoring of the situation. You can do this under permitted development, so it doesn't come to the planning committee. Residents do not have any ability to have any say into the issue. And the residents of Fant have had enough. They're now asking the council to support them in re-establishing democratic control over the process of giving approval to HMOs. Nobody in Fant, from people I've spoken with, is saying no to HMOs. What they're asking is that residents are enabled to take part in a democratic planning process to express their preferences, and so that we can look at the wider issues of individual HMOs. Now, I know, the solution now appears to be an Article 4 direction, which can give us the ability to require any application for a property being converted to an HMO to go for formal planning through the formal planning process, and it will then be decided on its individual merits. That will enable the communities to look at the wider issues around it, such as car parking, and the impacts on local infrastructure. Now, in widening this to include the whole of the ME16 postcode, we're recognising that the facts which I've just outlined, whilst they're pertinent to FANT, could equally apply to large parts or most of Bridgewald and even into parts of Heathwald. That side of Maidstone, the west side of Maidstone, has had this proliferation of HMOs over the last few years, and we're asking for the council now to make use of the powers we have to start to address it. Now, I'm expecting this to be remitted to SPI. I know I've had discussions, as I say, with Councillor Pearl. I think there is a commitment here to try to resolve this problem. Thank you. I so move the amended motion.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Before I take any speakers, I believe we need members' approval to, or not, to accept the amended motion. The amendment is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll be corrected, is to specify the ME16 8 area. That is the amendment, am I right, Councillor Harper?
Yes.
Now, members, how do you feel about that? Are you willing to accept that amendment to the proposed question? I think that's an agreed. Just a tick. All right, members, we've accepted the amendment. Of course, it will be up to the SPI committee, the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee, to look at. But there we have the question put before us, the motion. Councillor English, then Councillor Pearl. Councillor English, you start, please.
Madam Mayor, although I accepted the amendment because I believe the proposer and seconder of a motion have every right to make what is essentially a drafting amendment, I do have a little bit of a problem. I think there is no doubt there is a problem with HMOs in Fant and Bridge and parts of Heath. The problem does not, however, stop at the River Medway. The problem does exist in High Street Ward. It certainly exists in the Tovel part of South Ward, and it certainly exists in parts of East and North Ward, which I think puts a finger on why I'm not against the motion, but I think the motion will need some work at SPI, and I want to flag this up now. The problem with an Article 4 directive confined to ME16 8 is that with an Article 4 directive, if you're going to do it on an area basis like that, one will probably have to prove what's different between Fant and Bridge and the area in High Street Walls, which certainly is affected by HMOs. I think that's difficult, so I would hope that SPI would not restrict themselves to an artificial geographical area, postcoded or not. Much though as an ex-Royal Mail employee I love postcodes, I think that we have to be aware that they don't answer every problem. So I would hope that we'd look wider. The second point is just having a requirement for a planning application in itself will not answer the question. Those of us who've been to planning committee and watched powerlessly as residents' objections on planning applications on HMOs have fallen know that SPI will need to look at policy changes, even if it's only to our parking strategy, but to actually make sure that introducing such an order will work. So we need changes. We probably need an SPD to actually explore this area. So I want to flag that up now. And finally, whilst it's been a bit downplayed in the report, some of the issues that come up with HMOs are not planning issues. Fire protection, waste management, and various other issues around antisocial behaviour, room standards, etc., etc. There have been various changes in licensing regulations, and it may be that we are still rather limited in what we can do, but I would not wish to rule out, at this stage, doing more with looking into the feasibility of an additional licensing system. A number of local authorities up and down this country have done that. They have looked at HMOs with 3 inhabitants or more, and they have considered on a general basis that this gives them more control over various aspects. I think if we're going to have a comprehensive look at this, that we need to look at whether or not the enforcement of the existing licensing rules is enough and what we can actually do in terms of additional procedures. Having said that, I strongly support the general thrust of Councillor Harper's motion, and I hope that Councillor Cooper, Councillor Pearl will take on board the comments I've made in addition, in the spirit I make them, of trying to be constructive and having a robust answer rather than in any way criticising the thrust of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor English. Before I move to Councillor Pearl, I do apologise. I should have looked to Councillor Coates. You wish to second the motion, that's right? Thank you. I think I heard you say that you reserve your right to reply. Thank you for that, Councillor Coates. Councillor Pearl, you wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm extremely grateful to Councillor Harper and Coates, both in moving this motion and in accepting my amendment. I was going to make a few comments, but I think they've actually been covered in both what Councillor Harper said, but also somewhere in what Councillor English was just saying. So I won't dwell on that and just say I certainly support what is being proposed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearl. I didn't quite catch all that, but I'm sure the meaning was there, I'm sure. Councillor Coates, did you wish to speak now? I can't see anybody else wishing to speak on this motion. Did you wish to say anything, Councillor Coates, to second the motion, or...? Yeah, okay. Paul, you happy we can go to the vote? You don't need to say anything else, do you?
Sorry, I was halfway down Tunbridge Road. No, I don't need anything else to say. I think we can just go straight to the vote and take it forward.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I thought it was just me making the mistakes this evening. Members, I'd like to go to the vote on this. Would you like those in favour? Let's see those in favour, please. Oh dear, I think that's pretty, it's all, not quite unanimous, but we're pretty near there. Member, I think that's been carried, don't you? And therefore, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 18.5, the motion, having been formally moved and seconded, will be referred to the Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Committee. Thank you for that, members. We move on to, where are we now? The appointment, item 18, I need to ask, good, they're good. The interim head of legal partnership and monitoring officer has left has left the room. I call upon the chief executive now to introduce the report on behalf of the director of the Mid-Kent Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you say, I'm presenting this report on behalf of the Director of Mid-Kent Services, who apologises for not being here this evening, and I commend the report to Council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to look to Councillor David Burton to move the motion, move the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to record our thanks to Patricia Nairbaugh as she moves on to fresh challenges, and we wish her well. Members, I think the interim arrangements are very sound. I commend them to you, and I move as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I think that's Councillor Annabel Blackmore seconding. Is that right? Good, thank you. Questions I have. Councillor Bryce, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
It's not a criticism at all. I was just intrigued to understand why this is an interim appointment, given this is someone that we work with, and just understand if the notice period is not sufficient to recruit and appoint a permanent replacement. And if it isn't, you know, and if that's not an appropriate question, feel free to pass it back to me. But I was just intrigued to know, you know, do we not have time to appoint a permanent appointment rather than an interim appointment, or is this standard procedure?
Chief Exec, would you like to respond, or is it not for you to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Somewhat unusual, but I can help with that particular question. On this occasion, with our partners from Tunbridge Wells and Swale councils, we have concluded that this is the most constructive way forward. You may be aware that over a period of time that we have had some challenges in recruiting into our legal service. We are keen to be able to give the opportunity for very capable staff who already work within the service for a period of time, and to monitor that, and that at the end of that we can then go to the market in order to recruit. So that is our strategy in order to maintain consistency and continuity in the service going forward. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak? Right, I'll ask members whether or not... Oh, sorry, Councillor Blackmore, did you wish to... OK, let's go to the vote then. Members, do you agree with the recommendation? I'm so pleased to see a sea of green, and rightly so. That is pretty much unanimous. Let's have Ms. Bowlers back in the room. Welcome back. Welcome back. I can now address you as the interim head of legal partnership, I think. Thank you, Madam Mayor. You're very welcome. Item 19, members. Reappointment of Councillor Peter Titchener as a non-voting Parish Council representative on the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee, and I now look to Councillor Perry.
Make sure my glasses aren't steamed up this time. The Audit Committee has two Parish Council representatives, and they do play a very important role in the work of the committee. They are non-voting, but nevertheless they are big contributors to the debate. So one of them, Peter Titchener, is up for reappointment, and I would like to move that Councillor Peter Titchener of Alcombe Parish Council be reappointed as a non-voting Parish Council representative on the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee and the hearing panel as required for a further period of 3 years with effect from the expiry of his current term of office on the 12th of December 2021. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Is that seconded? Or I think I saw Councillor Round. Are you seconding, Councillor Round? Excellent. Thank you. If anybody else wishes to speak, doesn't look like it. Members, come on. Are we going to see a sea of green here? Yes, we are. Well done. That is certainly agreed. Thank you very much, members. That's our final item. Oops, one moment. Councillor Nagy?
Yeah, shouldn't someone thank him for his previous service for the previous 3 years?
Yeah.
Do we? I think someone should just say thank you for doing it and volunteer to come again. Wouldn't that be nice?
Do you know, that would be nice, and thank you for so doing, Councillor Nagy, on behalf of Councillor Perry. That was very thoughtful of you. Thank you. As I close the meeting, members, I will just remind you, when leaving, please maintain social distancing at all times and to avoid congregating at the exit or anywhere else in the room. Thank you, members, for this evening.